Save COD charges by sending check or money order, or use your credit card.
This is CNN.
Hello, welcome to CNN Overnight. I'm Brian Christie at our studios in Atlanta. Freight railroads have shut down because machinists are striking the CSX freight line. Amtrak passenger and Conrail freight trains had planned to run Wednesday because unions had agreed to postpone their strike against them for 48 hours. But because of the strike against the CSX freight line, Amtrak officials say their service will now be affected.
Amtrak is immediately affected with that because even though we operate over 24,000 miles of track per day, we only own about 750 miles of it, that being the Washington to Boston segment. So right now we have canceled all of the trains because of the freight railroad strike off the Northeast Corridor. We will continue to operate trains between Washington and Boston tomorrow, but because of the freight railroad strike, we will not be able to operate anything else.
Amtrak has special agreements with U.S. Air, United Airlines, and Delta Airlines to help Amtrak passengers stranded by the strike. The Bush administration says a strike of Amtrak would result in nearly 1 million rail-related layoffs within a few days, and Amtrak says the initial cost of a strike could be $50 million a day, and that amount could rise to $637 million a day if the strike lasted more than 2 weeks. Now, joining us right now on the telephone, Joel Myron. He is on the negotiating committee of Conrail Amtrak, the BMWE. Joel, what can you tell us?
The carriers have basically made a decision to shut down the whole freight system in the United States because there is a strike occurring by the International Association of Machinists on one railroad, the CSX.
Joel, can you basically give us an idea of what the basic issues are here? We're talking about wage increases and work rules, is that right?
I'm not from the machinists union, and you would have to talk to the machinists in order to get a correct answer to that. On the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way employees negotiations with Conrail and Amtrak, work rules and wages are our major issues. We've had movement in our negotiations on Amtrak and Conrail, and as a result, we made a determination at this time not to strike.
Okay, now that you have struck, though, as you probably know, the United States Senate said that they would stop any proposed strike. Any reaction to that?
Well, I think that they were dealing from what I'd seen on the media and everywhere else with an Amtrak strike along the Northeast Corridor, the one that was going to occur when several unions were theoretically going to strike at 12:01 a.m. this morning. But in fact, 4 of the unions that were involved settled, and 3 of them made a decision not to strike. So we felt at that time that we had pretty much resolved at least the problem of a strike on Conrail or on Amtrak up to this point.
Okay, Joel, are you feeling outraged at this point? Are you upset about all of this?
I'm absolutely infuriated that national carriers are holding the United States hostage and attempting to blame labor for what they're doing. The national carriers, any individual carrier, any individual freight carrier, constantly says that we shouldn't be able to strike them because of the impact that they have on the economy. And now, when one railroad is struck, they shut the whole country down, the whole freight system down, and hold the United States hostage because of one union striking on one railroad. This is an absolute outrage.
Okay.
And to me, I think the question should be directed in that manner at the carriers and at the Congress and at the President. What are you going to do about a national lockout? Hundreds of thousands of workers are going to be affected by the outrageous actions of the carriers here. I don't believe what they're doing is legal. Our attorneys are in the process of researching the matter to see whether or not they can be ordered to let people back to work. Just as the carriers have said all along, 90% of the employees had an agreement imposed on them by congressional action about a year and a half ago.
Joel, we're running out of time. We thank you very much for your time. Joel Myron from the negotiating committee of Conrail, Amtrak, the BMWE. We appreciate that. We are following this story. The freight railroads across the country are shutting down. We will have more as time goes on. Keep it on CNN. As we get more information, we will pass it on to you. Now, we go to Crossfire on CNN with Brian Christie.
From Washington, Crossfire. On the left, Mike Kinsley. On the right, John Sununu. Tonight, who's afraid of Ross Perot? In the Crossfire, Bush campaign advisor Haley Barbour and political strategist and author Kevin Phillips.
Good evening. Welcome to Crossfire. The reviews are in. Shocking, bizarre, frightening, wacko with a capital W. The latest Hollywood horror flick? No, these are the words the Bush campaign is starting to use about H. Ross Perot. The apparent strategy? Paint him as an authoritarian zealot, a threat to American liberty, and also as a bit of a nutcase. The Washington Post reported over the weekend that Perot has investigated Bush and his family's business dealings. Bush himself called that, quote, not particularly American. Will this strategy stop the Perot juggernaut? The latest polls show Bush and Perot tied for first place. But Perot's negatives, pollster jargon for people who view him unfavorably, have doubled. Unfortunately for Bush, they've doubled to 20%, while Bush's own negatives stand at 44%. Haley Barbour, we just got word before the show started that Ross Perot is going to have a press conference tomorrow at 2 p.m. So maybe these charges are starting to hurt. It will be on CNN Live. I'm sure you're eager to hear that. And I'm sure you'll be watching.
I'll be watching.
Good to hear. But look, are you going to sit there with a straight face and tell me that at this very moment, George Bush's team doesn't have people investigating everything they can find out about H. Ross Perot?
Well, I think perhaps in a political context there's opposition research being done, but what the Washington Post broke is something very different from that. In 1987, H. Ross Perot, for some reason that I guess maybe he's going to explain in this press conference tomorrow, decided to go out and spend thousands of dollars to hire investigators.
No, he did not hire any investigators.
To hire lawyers.
He did not hire any investigators.
His own man, Mr. Squires, referred to them as hiring investigators.
He said
and so
no.
He spent thousands of dollars to investigate George Bush and then turn the information over as a leak to the Washington Post, hoping they'd run something bad about him. I don't blame him for having a press conference. I would try to have a press conference to explain that one myself.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that George Bush, you've admitted he has teams of investigators investigating Ross Perot and surely Bill Clinton, too. There's whole wings of the campaign devoted to negative research. If he finds out something, he's just going to keep it himself? He's not going to leak it to the Washington Post?
What we're talking about here, Michael, that you're trying to take the eye off of is here's a private citizen, H. Ross Perot in Dallas, who goes out and for some reason, unknown still to anybody, hires investigators to investigate the Vice President of the United States and then slips it to the Washington Post.
So wait, let me see if I got this.
Is that illegal? I don't know if it's illegal, but it sure is stunning. And I wonder why.
Let me see if I've got this straight. It's okay for the President of the United States to hire investigators to investigate a private citizen who may be running against him for president, but it's not okay for a private citizen to hire investigators to investigate the Vice President. Is that what you're saying?
It is very much typical in political campaigns for Mr. Clinton's campaign to do research on Bush, Bush on Clinton. I think it is extremely unusual for a private citizen to go out.
What's wrong with it? If other candidates, if George Bush is doing it himself, as you confessed, what is wrong with it?
Well, it's something tremendously different. I mean, here is a man who is not in any political campaign who just decided he wanted to go out and investigate the Vice President of the United States. For what reason, I don't know. Maybe just because he doesn't like it. And then turn it over to the Washington Post and say, hey, look, here's some dirt on Bush. I wish y'all would go out and write something bad about it. Hard to understand.
Kevin, this concern about somebody who has a tendency to hire investigators to satisfy every little curiosity you have certainly has a valid concern when people think about what he might do as president in charge of the FBI. That's what's worrying people. Don't you think that's a fair charge?
Well, I'm not certain that's exactly what people have in mind. I think people are going to be looking at Ross Perot to answer some broader questions about who he's investigating and why. I think that's true. But in terms of George Bush, I think one of the fascinating questions here, he's not just, even as vice president, any old citizen. You're looking at a former director of the CIA who was not above being involved in some things. We can take it for granted. A man who's been accused on Iran-Contra, now accused on things from Iraq-gate, whatever that is, to the October surprise. So if you're looking at George Bush and you're somebody who's been involved in MIA issues and just a whole lot of questions.
There may be dirt there.
Well, yeah, and I think what it is in the end, Perot is going to be judged on what turns out from these investigations.
Well, Tom Luce said that this campaign is about, and I quote, this campaign is about Ross Perot's way of getting things done.
Tom Luce is Ross Perot's manager.
Top aide. Tom Luce is Ross Perot's top campaign aide. The fact is that if it is about the Ross Perot's way of getting things done, this is a very legitimate question to be raised. This slice of how he gets things done.
Well, I think it is too. I mean, if this is how he's getting things done, then the question is, what is he finding? And when you're looking at all these questions that relate to Bush's business practices, to these questions of international schemes and manipulations.
Are you saying he's going to come out with all of this now?
No, what I'm saying is I think in the end, the politics of this is going to rise or fall more on what turns out to have been proven about both men during this whole campain,
well, Haley,
but on who started the dirty tricks.
This makes Ross Perot sound not like the Ross Perot of the legend, but more like Juan Perón.
Oh. Well, the question is, what is it going to make George Bush turn out to sound like? The president or the CIA director who went nuts?
Come on, you're looking at somebody who likes to investigate people, and that's one of the things that
George
really
Bush
has created
was the head of the CIA, for heaven's sake.
And that's his job. That's the whole point, Michael. Kevin makes it sound like it's just perfectly normal to the millions of people watching this show that here's a private citizen that goes out and spends thousands of dollars to investigate a public official and then slip it to the biggest liberal newspaper in the country. That is very strange. It might not be illegal or wrong, but it is strange.
Haley, here is that article over the weekend was written by Bob Woodward, whom you're familiar with.
An agent of the Bush campaign.
Yeah,
right?
a well-known Republican
point is this.
of the Republican White House.
In that story, here's what Bob Woodward said. There is no evidence that Perot or his representatives broke any law or did anything improper in their inquiries about Bush.
You left out the part where he says there's no evidence that the vice president did anything wrong. Why didn't you give the whole quote?
Well,
what are you, half quote Kingsley?
Well, in fact, I agree with you. They found nothing about Perot, but they found nothing about Bush. They also found nothing about Perot. That's the point.
Let's back up. Isn't this about the Lidkeys and Pennzoil? Isn't this the Boy Scout ranch or the land that was involved there? I mean, there were several things mentioned in the Post. Now, which one are we talking about?
Well, my point to Haley is
the land, right?
The author of this article in the Post that you think is so scandalous and so revealing about H. Ross Perot says in the article itself it reveals nothing illegal or improper. So you tell me, what was illegal or improper about what H. Ross Perot did?
In fact, Michael, I know that it's hard for you to listen to me, but both times I've spoken on this subject on this show in the last 5 minutes, I've said that it wasn't anything illegal with it or wrong with it, but it is strange, and I think people look at...
Is there nothing improper about it?
Well, there's nothing illegal about it.
He says there's
people are going to judge for themselves.
That's Michael. That's really for the public to judge.
This is a lot of noise so far. They should know that it was there.
He's misrepresenting the facts about the story.
What's the transaction involved here? Can we stipulate what that is?
It was apparently a wide number of things, but among it was a contribution by Pennzoil to the federal government of some land.
Right. For which they got a huge tax deduction, right?
That the Washington Post and everybody said there was never any evidence that Vice President Bush was involved in it at all.
Well, do you know who is involved in Pennzoil and their former relation to Bush?
But that's not the issue. The issue is who's investigating whom.
Well, right, but the issue could also be who did what with whom.
Nobody found anything there, Kevin, and your suggestion that there's anything there when even the Perot camp admits there's nothing there is just part of the fog.
In that particular transaction,
okay, then why are you raising it?
Because the closeness between Pennzoil and Bush.
Kevin.
No, absolutely.
Do you want to discuss associating yourself with
Do you want to discuss this, John? The closeness between... No, you want to discuss it.
I'll discuss anything you want.
Okay.
The right way.
What's the relation between Bush and Pennzoil?
Historically, they were partners.
Yes.
Period.
No, more than that. I mean, did this relationship continue?
Perot says no.
No.
The Washington Post says no.
Did the Bush relationship with Pennzoil continue while Bush was in the CIA?
The answer is no.
Why did he then go to China after...
Why did he go to China? Because the president asked him to go to China.
No.
Is there something, are you suggesting...
On a trip talking about oil deals which involved Pennzoil later.
You know, Michael, I think it's very interesting. What Kevin is doing is very much what the Perot campaign is doing, and that is try to distract people's attention from that Perot's investigation
What
to
you're
talk about
accusing him of
something
doing
else.
is exactly what you're doing to H. Ross Perot. You're accusing Ross Perot of doing something wrong while implying that you're not.
Friends of H. Ross
I'm not
Perot.
accusing him of doing anything. I am saying that Kevin wants to change the subject and not talk about whether or not.
First of all, we got to
hired
stop
an
the crosstalk,
investigator.
and secondly, we got to give you a chance to come back to this. And when we do come back, we'll ask our guests whether H. Ross Perot isn't going to have to buy a convention to stay even through the summer.
You need to know how memory works.
I wonder how often I should save the pages I'm working on. I hope I don't lose anything.
You'd like to know how computers create art in 3 dimensions. You need to know how windows work.
Are these windows going to change my original document?
You'd like to know the difference between personal computers. For everything you need to know and would like to know about computers, there's Understanding Computers from Time Life Books. It shows you exactly how computers work. You'll learn the terms they don't explain in computer magazines or manuals. You need to know the difference between RAM and ROM.
I'm not sure my system can run this without damaging the program.
You'd like to know how computers make music. Every volume is packed with simple illustrations and diagrams to make learning about computers easy, even if you've never used one before. Call now to examine your first book, Computer Basics, free for 10 days. Keep it in pay just $14.99. Then other books will follow every other month. Cancel anytime. You need to know about spreadsheets. You'd like to know more about color graphics. Whatever you need or would like to know, Understanding Computers begins with Time Life Books.
Call 1-800-228-1500 to examine Computer Basics free for 10 days. Keep it for $14.99 plus shipping and handling. Use your credit card to order today and get this calculator watch as a free bonus. Return for a full refund if you're not satisfied. Call 1-800-228-1500.
Welcome back to Crossfire. Tonight we're discussing the Perot campaign and the political fear factor, real or perceived. Our guests are Haley Barbour, a Republican strategist and an advisor to the Bush campaign, and Kevin Phillips, a political strategist and author. Kevin, we're going into the summer season. That means the Democratic convention, the Republican convention. If these charges are laid out in terms of what the press is now doing to Ross Perot, and he leaves the summer season to the conventions, he's not going to get enough visibility. What is he going to do? Have to buy time to be equivalent?
Looks to me like they're thinking about buying time. I'm sure they're going to have some populist events. But I think what you're going to see is a whole lot of discussion is going to rise up around these issues.
But the point then is that if people see him spending money for that, it brings them back to the fact that he spends money on investigations, and the whole thing gets tied back into the circle.
Well, I'm not so sure of that. What I think you're going to see, and it's fascinating to think about it, it's an old-time Texas blood feud. A lot of the people around Perot, part of the old John Connolly axis, and they know a lot about Bush. He knows a lot about them. Tough stuff.
But what's happening to Ross is his Texas friends are saying he's got a tendency to exaggerate and distort the truth, from his version of horseback deliveries, which turned out to be on a bicycle, to his 4 different explanations of why he got out of the Navy, to what was now in the paper the other day where he claimed that he told the president he was a rabbit. I can tell you, I talked to the president about it. The president says that conversation never took place.
Wait a minute. He told the president he thought George Bush was a rabbit.
That's right.
Ross Perot didn't say Ross Perot was a rabbit.
He thought George Bush was, but George Bush says that conversation never took place.
Well, who knows whether that took place, but I think that's one of the nicer charges that's going to be made by the time this is over.
But truth is a factor.
Haley Barbour.
I think Kevin makes a very good point. It does give one the sense of an old-time blood feud. I mean, that was sort of the first thing that came to my mind when I heard about this story Sunday. Why would Ross Perot do this? I mean, he really must be mad at George Bush about something.
A lot of people are mad at George Bush, and they're not, including many who aren't from Texas.
Well, I would think that, Michael, is very few people who watch this show, except for people of your ilk, who would go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars to try to smear the Vice President of the United States in an off year, 1987. But blood feud is a good word. I mean, I think maybe that is what we're seeing here.
Once again, Haley, you're misrepresenting any allegation in this story in the Washington Post on Sunday. There was no hiring of people, there was no spending of thousands of dollars, and there was no smearing of anybody.
Well, Michael, wait a minute. The Washington Post reported, I mean, I never saw this except for what Bob Woodward wrote, that they paid one law firm $10,000, that James Squires, used the word that they used investigators, and that Perot delivered this over to the Washington Post and encouraged him to run it.
He delivered it over to the Washington Post.
Now, you may not consider that a smear, but I'll guarantee you, if I went out and if I chased you around for a month and then went and gave the charge to some conservative newspaper, you would consider it a smear.
He delivered it to the Washington Post when he was running a campaign where, according to the Bush rules, as you state them yourself, all's fair.
No, he gave it to them before the campaign.
Washington Post handled them in a completely honest and objective manner and came to a conclusion that you agree with.
Mike, he gave it to them before the campaign.
Yeah, he gave it to them when he was thinking of running for president. Anyway, you don't deny, do you, Haley, that your presence here and the things you're saying are part of a concerted Bush strategy, that this is the party line to paint, right or wrong, it's the party line, it's what the Bush people decided, this is the way we deal with Ross Perot, we paint him as a nut and an authoritarian.
I will tell you that I am here on the show because y'all called me this afternoon and asked me if I'd like to do it. The Bush campaign never spoken to me about it, never asked me to say anything.
Charlie Black said in the New York Times today, he's worse for the Bush campaign. We made a decision a couple weeks ago that it would be fine for the surrogates to dust him up a bit. That's what you are. You're a surrogate.
Well, I'm really not. I mean, and Charlie Black has never asked me to say anything. But I do think what Kevin said is more the news here is why. I mean, blood feud may be one reason.
It's Pandora's box here. That's the fascinating thing, because if this turns into a hot and heavy between these factions, and I think it really is going to, and you people are into it, hammer and tongs, your allies are into it, this is going to get bloody. You know who the big winner may be out of this?
Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Sure.
That's right.
I'm not denying
because the White House is smearing Perot, and Perot's going to smear the White House.
Actually, what will happen is Ross will end up in a position where he's going to have to buy more time to put out positions.
What I think is just outrageous about this
you people are the ones who are dealing with all the fundraisers and lobbyists that get mocked on NPR, where you've got one entrance
everybody gets mocked on NPR.
Oh, one entrance for the people who want to buy ambassadorships, another for those who are buying pardons. I mean, what you're getting here is some pretty tough fundraising on your side,
Haley,
too.
you were about to tell us that something's outrageous.
It's outrageous for you two to sit here and say the Bush campaign did this. The Washington Post wrote this. Bob Woodward, certainly no friend of any Republican White House, wrote this.
Sure,
I mean, the Republicans had no hand in it, and the whole Perot point of view here, Michael, that you're participating in is to take the focus off what Perot did and what was reported,
Michael,
and try to make like the Republicans are doing something.
Don't you read the New Republic and the article they had on Ross Perot?
My only point is there's nothing wrong with a concerted strategy. I just want you to admit that this is the spin. This is the official Bush strategy. This is the concerted strategy.
He's not a concerted part of it.
There's a fair.
I think you've got to get it down.
Well, John's willing to admit it, but Haley's tried to deny it. That's my point. Let me ask you
made the point, right? That may be true, but I'm not here at their invitation. I'm here at yours.
Mike, just because it fits naturally, it's automatic. If somebody's got a character flaw, no, if somebody's got a character flaw,
everyone.
If Ross Perot's got this character flaw, people are going to talk about it.
What a coincidence. Let me ask you this.
It's not a coincidence, it's natural.
Mr. Bush seems to believe that there's some sort of rule of etiquette or high principle that you never speak ill of your opponents until the convention, and then apparently after the convention you can say anything the heck you want. Ross Perot says, look, if you've got something against me, why don't you step out front and say it like a man instead of sending out, we won't say Haley Barbour, but sending out Charlie Black, sending out Dan Quayle, sending out Bob Teeter and all these aides to say, why don't you say it yourself? Now, what's wrong with that? Doesn't he have a point?
I think, in fact, what George Bush is saying, and rightly, is the American people expect him to be president right now. The best thing he can do for himself politically right now is go out and do a good job at being president and not go out and...
Would you tell us about political reality here, Kevin?
Well, the political reality is, of course, that Bush is right not to get out front and do this. The political reality is right to have his allies and his lobbyists do it.
But it's dishonest.
Well, yeah, but politics is dishonest. What I think has to be dealt with here is where is this all going? You know, who is going to be pulled down from what pedestal?
Well, tell us.
Maybe both of them. I think what you're going to get out of this is all kinds of things the president doesn't want to get discussed are going to get discussed. Some of them in the National Enquirer, some of them in references to his family, some of them in references to other behavior, and this is going to be a mess.
All right, well, we look... Track record on predictions, that's the best news I've had all week.
We look forward to doing that on Crossfire. We got to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what Dan Quayle's been saying.
Announcing an all-new collection, great films of the Bible. They're here now in an incomparable home video collection from Time Life Video.
Who is is on the Lord's side, let him come to me.
These are great films of the Bible. As they honor the spirit of the Bible, they create a testament to the art of filmmaking. These films are acknowledged masterworks, each one worthy of a place in your family's personal collection. Beginning with a masterpiece, Ben-Hur. Yours for just $9.99, $20 off the regular price.
The day Rome falls, there will be a shout of freedom such as the world has never heard before.
Order now, and if you use your credit card, you'll receive an original Ben-Hur script, a beautifully bound collector's item, and it's yours absolutely free. Other videos include the 10 Commandments, the greatest story ever told, the robe, and more. And now you can get Ben-Hur for just $9.99 during this special offer. That's $20 off. And remember, with your credit card, you'll receive an original Ben-Hur script, a beautifully bound collector's item, free. Other videos will arrive about every 6 weeks at $29.99. Keep only the ones you wish to, cancel anytime. The great films of the Bible, a magnificent collection that brings the pages of the Bible to life. Call now and get Ben-Hur for just $9.99.
Use your credit card to get Ben-Hur for $9.99, $20 off. You'll also receive a beautifully bound copy of the original script free. Other videos follow, one about every month, the regular price. Keep only the ones you want. Call now, 1-800-634-7400.
Haley Barbour, just a few weeks ago, Dan Quayle was saying Clinton's a goner, our real opposition here is H. Ross Perot. Now he's saying, just yesterday I believe, he said Perot is doomed, our real opponent is Bill Clinton. Now I'm sure he was being perfectly sincere both times. Who are they really scared of?
He was right both times.
He was right both times. So in other words, Clinton, first, what's happened in the past few weeks politically is that first Bush has destroyed Bill Clinton and left him a goner, and now he's on the verge of destroying Ross Perot, so George Bush has gone from strength to strength the past few weeks. Is that it?
I think what in fact has happened is that Clinton had terrible problems in the Democratic primary, came out with 2 big harpoons stuck in him. He survived. Perot smothered him part of the spring, and it may have actually helped Clinton get him out of people's minds where he could kind of recover and make a rerun. I mean, when Quayle says both of them are serious competition, I think that's exactly right.
Not what he said.
They are both serious
Whenever
competition.
he wants to demean the other one, he says the other one's a serious competition.
Good politics, Mike. Kevin Phillips, you're the kind of analyst Ross Perot loves. You come here, a vice president, and President Bush has been analyzed for 12 years, no specific reality in terms of charges, and you come out with all the sleazy innuendo. Is that what we're going to see over and over between now and November?
Oh, I would guess you're going to see some of it. I think it's inevitable. I mean, it's clear
with the same kind of lack of substantiation that you bring tonight.
Well, we're not here to talk about the details of these charges, are we?
You never are, Kevin. I mean, that's the story of your life on the George Bush record.
One of the interesting things, John, is that the position the White House finds itself in.
I'm not the White House, remember?
No, but I mean, they're so badly off, they might even want you back at some stage. It's not quite bad enough for that
You
yet.
are a surrogate,
You
John.
never know. I mean, the president has all these difficulties, John. I mean, some of them started on your watch, but my God, they've gotten out of hand.
I think people are discovering that the emperor has
All
no
right,
clothes.
we're out of time. Thanks,
Just has postage stamps.
Thanks, Kevin Phillips. Thanks, Haley Barbour. The surrogate over here and I will be back in just a moment.
I was putting in a lot of late hours at the office. The pressure was really getting to me. My doctor told me if I didn't get some exercise, I'd be a prime candidate for a heart attack.
Nordic Track.
Nordic Track was just what I needed to work off stress. And my doctor says my blood pressure is lower too.
I had a terrible time losing weight after my second baby, and dieting wasn't enough. I needed a way to burn more calories.
Nordic Track.
With Nordic Track, I was able to increase my metabolism and burn calories faster. I lost weight, and I still ate regular meals.
I really wanted to enjoy this time of my life. I didn't have the energy.
Nordic Track.
Now I feel great. Better than I have in years. Thanks, Nordic Track.
Millions of people have already discovered how to achieve their personal fitness goals and improve the quality of their lives with Nordic Track. Nordic Track is the easy way for you to get in shape and feel your best. Nordic Track simulates cross-country skiing, the world's best aerobic exercise. So it's a great way to get in shape, manage stress, and help control weight. Unlike ordinary exercisers like bikes, treadmills, and stair climbers, which only work your lower body, Nordic Track provides a total body workout. It tones, develops, and conditions all the major muscles of your upper and lower body. And Nordic Track's patented flywheel design creates a smooth, non-jarring motion no other ski machine can match.
With Nordic Track, your workout experience is so involving and so rewarding that Nordic Track is the workout you'll stay with. Independent research shows that even after 5 years, 7 out of 10 Nordic Track users are still using their machines 3 times a week. That's a track record that just can't be equaled by ordinary exercise equipment. Try Nordic Track in the convenience of your own home for 30 days. Call 1-800-521-1313. Nordic Track is affordable. Choose the model that's priced right for you. Call now.
Tomorrow, Ross Perot will have his first national news conference since becoming an unofficial, undeclared presidential candidate. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and CNN will carry it live. John?
Mike, the Washington Post comes out with an article, and Ross Perot starts claiming it's the Bush campaign. Unbelievable. Everyone said this guy was thin-skinned. It's going to show. You're going to see in the news conference somebody reacting to the fact that he's investigating somebody else, and he doesn't want that.
No one's claiming that the Washington Post article came out of the Bush campaign, John. Let me ask you, do you deny that George Bush's campaign is at this very moment investigating H. Ross Perot?
They probably had research already done, but that is different than a private citizen hiring somebody to investigate the President of the United States.
So I ask you, your position is it's okay for the President to investigate a private citizen, but it's not okay for a private citizen to investigate the President?
It's okay for political candidates to investigate each other, but you don't, as a private citizen, hire private investigators to investigate public officials.
But why not?
He did hire. You keep saying it.
He did nothing.
Go read the article.
He did nothing illegal. It is perfectly fine for anyone. I can investigate something. I may investigate you, John.
Read the Washington Post.
Mike Kinsley. Good night for Crossfire.
Read the Washington Post and the New Republic. And from the right, I'm John Sununu. Join us again tomorrow night for another edition of Crossfire.
Do you ever feel like you've been riding a bicycle with square wheels? Now, thanks to an innovation in bicycling, you can ride with greater comfort and safety. Introducing Wonder Ride, a shock absorber specially designed for bicycles.